Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I thank the organizers of this FDP to give me an opportunity to meet you all. And special thanks to my colleague, Dr. D. Sriram, for pushing me to this theme. If we look at the indigenous classics, we find that the concept of good governance is not a desired practice, but an obligation for the civil society. As we all know, Mahabharata encodes this attribute with the term Rajdharma, meaning it is as righteous a duty as dharma. Shanti Parva in Mahabharata even goes to the extent of mentioning Rajadharma as the culmination of all duties. Good governance broadly includes quality of participation, adherence to law, transparency, accountability, timely decision making, responsiveness, equity, and inclusivity. With our country aspiring to achieve the global visibility and growth, sector of education becomes a key driver. In the modern knowledge economy, driven by the accelerators of 3M as defined by Friedman, and data-driven economy, the country that provides quality and inclusive education to its citizens would become the leader. India has the other required strength of youth and high population. The task that remains now is to properly nurture this talent pool. The Global Education Development Agenda reflected in the Goal 4 of SDG of the 2030 Agenda for the Sustainable Development adopted by India in 2015 seeks to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all by 2030. This requires a paradigm shift in the approach to the way the policies are formed and implemented in education. The top 10 global risks and challenges described by the World Economic Forum in December 2021 require new approach to problem solving. The modern world of Industry 4.0, Energy 4.0, and Education 4.0 strongly pushes us to restructure the way we make our policies. Adversity sometimes brings good opportunity, and in spite of the loss that we faced during the times of pandemic, it has provided to us that much needed pause to reflect on our greed and needs. Friedman used to say that if you press the pause button on a machine, it stops. But if you press the pause button on the human mind, it starts. The era of new education policy is an elusive threshold to carry forward the good and to rework the gaps that we have found. If we look at some of the key challenges that have held us back from the point of view of governance and quality, we find that we have operated in fragments and in silos. In a way, the separation of disciplines have made our stakeholders look like the blindfolded people trying to define an elephant. Forget about transdisciplinarity. We have not been even able to place multidisciplinary options for our students. Obsession with the core domain has made the entire ecosystem tilted wrongly. In past, attempts have been made to do a cosmetic beautification in the name of electives or CBCS But deep in the heart, we know that these steps have not made our stakeholders look holistically. Another bigger challenge that we find has been the issue of inclusivity. Geographically and socio-economically, reaching out to all stakeholders and providing quality education was always a challenge. But the pandemic and the digital divide have even aggravated this problem. A country cannot progress at the holistic pace if all the stakeholders who crave for and deserve quality education do not get that. Regulatory systems, both at the university level as well as at the statutory level, have either been too lax or too rigid. And this leads to the slow growth that we are experiencing today. Classic case was the debate on whether humanities first degree program can be of 4-year duration or not. While quality monitoring is extremely critical for all stakeholders, not allowing any innovation is equally limiting. Provision of quality teaching and training programs for faculty is also not ensured properly. Balance between quality teaching and quality research is also the need of the hour. Our universities and their stakeholders have stayed cozy in the campus rather than directing efforts to the community. Merely having the cosmetic satisfaction with some community outreach here and there and discussing community challenges from the campus or in luxury hotels do not serve the purpose. Many universities have laid emphasis on internships and industry projects, but we have not pushed our academic stakeholders to spend mandatory time in rural India to understand the grassroots challenges and the potential intellect that remains untapped. Last challenge that I want to discuss is the imbalance between too much emphasis on immediate industry needs for getting rid of placement worries or no participation from industry in some universities. While understanding industry requirements and the needs is important, our students have many times become short-sighted and prisoners of immediate industry needs cycle. The proposals of NEP, if carried out in true spirit, will initiate quality benchmarks. The policy emphasizes on light but tight regulatory framework, which will lead to affiliated colleges of a university gain graded autonomy with quality check by the university. This will release the pressure of numbers and the operational challenges for a large university. Concept of MERU, Multidisciplinary Education and Research University, will be a positive catalyst for synthesis of all relevant branches in a bouquet for a student, irrespective of specialization. Initiatives of Academic Bank of Credit will enable a student to seamlessly tailor the career path with flexibility. Anyhow, with digital education knocking our doors and cheap data, rigidity and control over the guaranteed admission of a student in one campus was always going to be obsolete. Advocating 4-year research degree for all disciplines is again a refreshing change, which puts all branches of knowledge as professionals. I also like the emphasis on local regional language. While providing relevant quality learning material in local languages can be an issue, we cannot deprive a major chunk of population which either does not have a luxury of learning in the other language or does not want to out belongingness. Argument favoring the global language is proven wrong today, with many countries using their own national or local language and still rising to growth. If we discuss the performance assessment of all stakeholders, we find three major stakeholders whose performance is a key: students, faculty, and universities. The traditional system of chalk and talk we have balanced with computers, digital innovations, and massive open online courses. But the traditional exam pattern of pen and paper have still held us back. We saw how many universities in India could not even conduct final exams in time, and many gave mass promotions to students. Innovative practices like open book exams or performance-based exam or studio work or product are the elephants in the room, which everyone sees but does not want to acknowledge. Performance assessment that do not push for a memory testing but leads to relevant engineering or social engineering solutions, even as a group, should be encouraged. For faculty assessment too, the API is quantitative, and many attempts of a faculty to contribute to the main stakeholders beyond the metrics are not counted, leading to immediate greed of qualifying for promotion or frustration of no one noticing the genuine attempts of a faculty. Having performance appraisal of a faculty on rotational benchmarking of teaching and research may push all faculty to work holistically. In terms of performance appraisal, assessment of institutions and universities, it is proposed in the NEP to have one macro canopy of National Higher Educational Regulatory Council, which will act as the common single point regulator for the higher education sector, including teacher education and excluding medical and legal education, thus eliminating the duplication and disjunction of regulatory efforts by the multiple regulatory agencies that exist in the current times. This is much needed, as most organizations and arms of the organizations are all the time busy managing data collection and data dissemination, leaving less time for the productive work. Lastly, I want to touch upon internationalization of higher education. As envisioned in NEP, to establish India as the desired destination hub of education and consolidating position as Vishwaguru, we may continue positively in this direction, but also understand and exercise patience in doing so. Premature jump in enrollment of international students on Indian campuses without quality check or infrastructure resources would lead to chaos. Our first priority should be to redress quality standards for our own national needs. Replicating global practices without local ethos would enlarge the gap between the haves and the have-nots. Constitution of dedicated Office of International Relations is a welcome recommendation, but operational challenges for such efforts and in successful manner needs a lot more time and effort. India itself needs a lot more understanding of other language and culture. Internationalization cannot prosper if students find challenges outside the campus. Provision of having international campuses in India and having separate legislative framework facilitating such entry as promised in the NEP should be monitored with caution. Comparing an apple with orange is not good, but having separate regulatory framework for Indian universities and international universities in India can weaken our own footprints. We definitely need major trust to be good in education before we start aspiring to be the best. I read in Sydney Morning Herald in 2011 that patience is a political virtue, even in impatient times. Any quality initiative should not become a tool for instant gratification. The government has taken a timely initiative of providing vision. The governance may take time and we should be prepared for it. My thanks to the organizers of this FDP and all the good wishes to all the participants. Namaskar.